In live stream. Okay.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining. Just we're going to give it a minute for people to get settled in, as well as the uh, LinkedIn Live restream to kick in. So
But thanks everyone for joining.
yeah,
Let's give everyone maybe a minute or two so that they
yeah.
have a chance to join, and then we'll jump right into it.
And actually, while we're waiting, both people here in the Zoom webinar as well as on LinkedIn wanted to throw a comment in on where you're joining us from. It's always nice to see where the audience is.
What about yourself, Rick?
I am north of Boston, living in the tax-free haven of New Hampshire.
Yeah, and I'm in San
Don't tell
Francisco.
the IRS.
I'm in San Francisco. It's surprisingly sunny today, so like it seems like a hot weather is coming here. Finally, we've been waiting for a whole summer.
Yeah,
I think we're good to go. Let's
I think we're good to go. So
let
you want to
me.
bring up the slide deck, and I'll do a quick
Yeah, yeah,
housekeeping.
yeah. Do you say it by the way?
We do.
Okay.
So everyone, thank you for joining. Appreciate your attendance. Today, Stefan's going to kind of walk you through some of the new features and functionality we've been adding to the platform, as well as a little bit of an overview on some of the methodology on why we would be doing that. So this is meant to be interactive. Please feel free, both on the Zoom chat as well as in the comments on LinkedIn Live. Hit us up with some questions, and we will do our best to give you a good show. So, Stefan, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Rick. And we suppose I could spend most of the time to the demo section.
Yeah.
Uh, so feel free to ask any questions you have about the demo and like what you'll see in the UI. Just a heads up, like you can just go and sign up. It's a free trial. It's actually a free tier now. So basically, everything you see right now, you can just try right away. And if you have some apps and APIs you want to protect, this might be perfect day to try it out, right? Like I will show you and you can try it right away. But before we jump into the demo, I just want to give you a very brief overview of what we recently did. And that's an incredible work by my colleagues. It's Ivan and Chris and Anastasia who work on the API report. We had another webinar recently, so you can find the recording, and it's just like full of a lot of insights about like what's happening in the API security space and overall like on the exploits and everything. But I just want to bring up a few things here. Sometimes we come to the CISOs, and even though they understand the necessity of the API security program and API security overall, they don't have enough data. And they're just asking like, what kind of data do you have? And obviously I see all the headlines about all those companies breached because of the API vulnerabilities, but do you have any data? And like, we're happy to run some kind of reports and research. And they, just the results for the Q2, like if you take the number of the API vulnerabilities and exploits that happen to be found in different kind of open source and commercial tooling, it's an incredible number. Like it used to be 50 in the Q1, and it's now close to 200. So it's basically almost our 280% growth, like quarter to quarter, which is amazing. And if you take a look about like what kind of vulnerabilities we're dealing with, what do we do is this mapping from the OWASP top 10 to the OWASP API security top 10. So like we're all wait when these two categories will be merged into the one OWASP, but like currently we work with both of them, and it's very interesting to see like what is the overlapping here. And the reason I'm bringing this up is just because a lot of people think about the um, new type of attacks like Bolar, okay, which was like used to be called IDOR and all the others. But like in reality, the number one vulnerability for the apps, but also for the APIs, as we see within this report, is injection. So I can see like it's like 62 of vulnerabilities are so like it's basically you see like the injection on the OWASP on the left side and the injection, which is API 8 on the right side, which is the part of the OWASP API security tab. So you can see there's a huge overlap. So I encourage everyone just to download this report, and it just has a lot of insights. We are coming with a full report later this week or early next week. So we have a lot of like key takeaways and et cetera and et cetera. But just like the last piece of content I want to highlight is that a lot of those vulnerabilities almost immediately have the public exploits. So like what we see is that like most of the vulnerabilities start to be exploited right away. So that the attackers get the exploit and they just like scan all the internet and try to apply this exploit all over the place. So just be aware of it, and just it makes the necessity and like the idea of why it's so important to have the API threat prevention in place so crucial nowadays. And I see some names that are familiar, so like thanks guys for joining, but I also see a lot of new names. For all of you who are not familiar with what Wallarm does, let me give you just like a very brief, like just like a few minutes overview, just to set the stage. So what we're working on right now is the platform that uniquely unifies two product offerings. So like it's advanced API security and it's WAAP. And it's one unified platform with the two products in place where you have best of two worlds. You don't need to buy like WAAP and then you need to buy the extra API security product. It's like one solution that provides you the best of two worlds, and it's built from ground up to be one unified solution, one unified platform. So the best thing to think about it is just about the product that can actually protect any asset that you have, like APIs, web apps, single page applications, microservices, service mesh, in any environment. So it can be public or multi-cloud environment, Kubernetes-based environment, or it can be some kind of legacy private data center. It's okay. And the goal we have here is just basically to protect all those assets wherever they are running from any types of threats. It's OWASP API, OWASP API security, account takeover, different kind of like L7 abuses, and et cetera, and et cetera. So when we talk about Wallarm, the features, we typically talk about three things: discover, protect, and respond. So like discover is all about like how to find all the assets you have based on the traffic, based on the external scanning, just to give you your map of attack surface, like where the attackers will come, like what kind of assets you have, to have you like up-to-date catalog, inventory, which of those assets handle the sensitive data, which is important for compliance, or what are the changes that are happening in your assets like day to day, and et cetera, and et cetera. So this is the discovery part. We'll talk about that during demo. Then we have the protection. And like it's so like this is one of the most important parts of Wallarm, is basically how to protect your assets, your APIs, and APIs like of any protocol. Basically, it can be REST or SOAP, but it also can be GraphQL and gRPC and WebSockets against different kind of threats being installed either inline or out of band. So like it's all about like how to analyze the traffic at the speed of the load balancer, apply all the necessary parsers and apply attack detection, which by the way doesn't rely on signatures, so that we can identify different types of attacks with a very, very high accuracy. We'll talk about that. And the last part is respond. So like it's all about like how to stream, like, because you not only need data about the attacks, you need to understand, and you need workflows and processes in place about how to react if you're dealing with this kind of attack or that kind of attack. So we provide you all the tooling in place that can help you to investigate, to set the different kind of IR incident response procedures, to set up the integration so they can work with your existing tooling, and obviously to have full visibility of what's happening with your apps and APIs, like what it attacks, like what are the attackers, what are the actions they are taking, and like were there any harm that was or any damage to your applications or customer data. So that's an important thing. At this point, let me just like jump right into the demo. So like there is the demo environment, which is deployed in the AWS. It's a demo environment, but we basically reproduced a lot of things and a lot of scenarios that we see among our customers. And the way it's deployed is with a combination of out of band in AWS and also inline Wallarm nodes. So but the customers typically have a lot of options for deployment. So it can be like the pre-built images in the public cloud. It can be ingress controller, it can be sidecar, it can be different kind of outbound deployments. And the something that we started with is modules for the load balancers, API gateways, and something like, and a lot of other stuff where you can just like plug in the module without adding any complexity to your existing infrastructure. You can see my screen, right, Rick? Just want to make sure that I'm still hearing the UI. So like this is the whole UI. Yeah, this is one unified console where you see the full picture of what's going on with your API and app estate. So like we can analyze traffic for apps and APIs that are running in multiple locations. It can be in GCP, it can be some kind of Kubernetes in the private cloud, it can be the edge environment somewhere. So like regardless of where your apps are running, we can inspect the traffic automatically and provide the protection. And you have this console with a full view of what is going on here. So like this is the full overview of what you're having. Let me start with the discovery. So that's kind of very natural thing, right? Because like as everybody's saying, you can protect something that you don't know. But I think it's even more important with the APIs. Gartner is saying like by the 2025, more than half of the APIs wouldn't be managed. So it means like it's even now when we talk with the CISOs and like other product security leaders, it's usually a question like how many APIs you have, like what of those APIs handle sensitive data, which of them you need to work with your auditors about the compliance and etc. So and basically who are responsible for what. So all those questions when we are asking, we just like see very uncomfortable answers, especially in the larger works, because there are so many teams and there's so much pressure to innovate faster, so that like everybody's running their own stack, everybody was using their own frameworks. It's not an unusual thing when the company is using different kind of API management, API gateway software. So it's a total mess in some cases. And just bringing the clear picture of what kind of assets you have at all is a huge value for a lot of companies that we're working on. So this section API discovery actually gives you a very good view of what are the API endpoints you have. And we try to segment all those things like to help you better navigate across this map. So we show you what of the APIs are external, which of them are internal and they are not exposed to the outside. So that's a list of the APIs. And this data is fully reconstructed based on the traffic. So you can have up-to-date docs from developers, at least what developers will say, yeah, we have the docs up to date. And you have this API specs that basically were reconstructed based on the traffic. And it's amazing how many differences you can actually find between comparing the open API specs, which you can download right here, with the specs from developers. There is always inconsistency. There is always APIs that are not covered from the docs. So we call them shadow APIs. There are always old version of the APIs that used to be running and they are not active anymore and they are not in the docs. There are a lot of legacy APIs that nobody's aware of. There's always maybe a few endpoints, but nobody in the company will say who's responsible for that. So having this full picture reconstructed on the actual usage from the traffic is super important. And as you can see, like it looks a lot like Swagger. You can scroll it up and down. You can see what are the parameters those APIs have, which of them are required, which of them are optional. So like it's a full view, like very similar to what you have from developers, but again, reconstructed from the traffic. Great thing, like a lot of those things we've been recently updated and like upgraded, but it's not only catalog, right? It's not only about like having the list of the APIs. So the questions we usually have is just like, what of those APIs need to meet compliance requirements? Which of those APIs carry or handle sensitive data? And you can have an immediate answer by just like using different kind of filters. You can filter which of the APIs, let's say, work with the login credentials. You can pick this group and you instantly have all those assets. You see it's the group now, and you can click, let's say, to the submission, and you can see that like this particular endpoint like work with the token, or you can go like to another one and click here and you see, okay, this API endpoint works with the token and it works with the email, it works with the username. So like you are getting all those details about like which of those APIs work with the PII data, or if you're financial org, you can click here and it basically find all of the APIs that work with the financial data, like the credit card number or the some kind of like a different kind of CVs and etc. Or just like the card number. So like instantly have all those APIs that need to meet the compliance requirements. Why you need this? Because like you can basically set up your risk scoring based on those things. The idea here is that you can prioritize your product security efforts towards those API endpoints that are most likely to be a reason of some kind of incident. And you have all the flexibility of the system here so that you can have the risk program in place. So we already showed you this filtering by the different kind of PII data. What else can be interesting? Like we talk a lot with the product security leaders and they're saying, hey, I have thousands of APIs. A lot of them are getting updated. And in some cases, we don't even know when this is happening. So how about this situation when you show me which of the APIs have been recently updated, and I can prioritize my efforts based on that. I can give the list of those updated API endpoints to my red team, kind of like internal red team, or I can highlight those APIs to bug bounty to make this more effective. And we're saying, no, like we're glad you asked, because in this case, you can basically pick the filter and look for all of the APIs that have been updated since the some certain period of time. Like in this case, I just picked the July 1st, and we see the list of APIs that have been changed. Like you can click here and you see what's changed. You see like is premium is a new parameter, zip code is a new parameter. Okay, new parameter, probably some new business logic, something that you can test, and there might be new vulnerabilities. Or you can see which of the APIs are just completely new. Like this V1 customer, this is a completely new API. We've never seen the traffic for it. Like it's maybe a brand new project. Maybe it has never been tested. So like, once again, it's just the way how we can give it to the red team or bug bounters to have a full list of all the APIs that have been recently updated. So we're basically, regardless of what risk modeling you're using, you have this different parameters. We got like which of the APIs external and internal, and obviously external APIs possess more risk. Which of them carry PII, different other types of sensitive data. You can click here and choose specifically which of them are recently updated, which of them are added over the last several weeks. So you have full visibility of everything. But what's even cooler is that you have all this data available over the API. So basically, Wallarm is the API first product, obviously, and we use Wallarm to protect ourselves and etc. So like you can get all the data, like download the open API specs, not only from the UI, but with the APIs. And you can use it in your development pipelines. You can change, like you can basically compare it with what you have from developers, find inconsistency, or like make the list of the new and updated API endpoints and feed it into your existing DAST and SaaS solution. So like it's the whole list of things you can do with the integrations. And by the way, we support a lot of integrations out of the box, but I will get back to this. Speaking of the discovery, I just can't ignore and not show you another part. We call it scanner. So like for the API discovery, we primarily look for the APIs where we see the traffic, where we can discover trails and the logs, or we can use different kind of other internal sources of data. The scanner is basically something that the bad guys will do. And we basically try to find every exposed asset that you have, like all the domains, subdomains, all the assets, show where they are running. And that's incredibly helpful because it works super fast. The only thing you need to do is just to add your domain. Basically, I can add the one.com here. And you're almost instantly will get all the assets that you have running and exposed. And the beauty here is that also you can scan it for different kind of misconfigurations and issues. As you can see here, you can pick by the type of the CWE. And you would be surprised like how many of you will have some kind of vulnerabilities that you can find even during the free trial. So like that's an important thing. So once again, discovery, one part is based on the traffic, another part is based on the external scanning. So like those things are awesome. So let's talk about the attack detection. So, and I'll switch to the dashboard here. So like, since we analyze all the traffic being in line or out of band, and we can see like how many requests do you have, like which of them are malicious. So we, in real time, can identify which of those requests can possess the attack, can be an attack and can be malicious towards your application. And as for typical dashboard, like we obviously have like all this breakdown by type of the attacks, or the breakdown by the API protocols where we see most of the attacks. We can highlight where the attackers are coming from, or we can make a breakdown like by the targets. And like here, we can basically divide all the data by the domains automatically, or by applications that you can actually set up by yourself. Let's say you have different subgroups or different applications, you can manually specify like what are the apps you have. And this will allow all those individual groups to have their own dashboards and their own view. So like basically you have all this data here, and it's an overview which might be helpful. But the beauty of Wallarm, and this is where we really thrive, is the unique visibility into what's really happening. So like, let me just pick one of the API protocols. I don't even know. Let me start from the GraphQL, since the GraphQL is really taking off. We're having more and more customers that come to us and say, hey, we're using gRPC for our internal microservices, and we start using GraphQL in addition to REST for our external assets. So I just picked the GraphQL on the dashboard, and this is what I see like for the last months for the GraphQL endpoints. I can pick larger time frame. Let's pick something like the whole June, July, and August, and we see, as we can see, there are 4 attacks, and it doesn't mean that there's like 4 malicious requests. It means that there's actually 6,000 of malicious requests, but we just know that a lot of them are related to each other. It's likely one attacker, so we group them together so that you have like this amazing signal to noise ratio. You just need to analyze 4 attacks instead of analyzing 6,000 of log events. If you want more details, it's okay. You can just click here. Like this attack consists of almost 3,000 of malicious requests. You have a summary for all those malicious requests, where every single line here is basically a malicious request. Do you want more visibility? All right, okay, you can just get this, and you instantly get the details about like what was the malicious request. And as you can see, there is some kind of injection payload which was injected right into the GraphQL query. So like we can provide you full visibility about what was it. And that's an amazing thing. So like in this case, it was always a part of the GraphQL endpoint. So let me show you another example. I'm getting back to the dashboard, and let me pick maybe this REST API endpoint. So and in this case, since REST APIs are much more, a lot of our APIs are based on the REST APIs, and it's the same for our demo environment. We just see a lot of attacks. You can basically filter out a lot of things here. So like, for instance, you can say, hey, I really want to know like when my app responded with a 500 error codes. So like, let me filter this. And like, there was no situations like that since the June, July, but maybe let me add 4.1 and 4.2, and now I'm getting more data because there were 5 or 2 here. So this was the brute force attack. And once again, you can expand it and see that there was an attack that is coming against this tired full API. So this is the name of the API endpoint that was affected. Let me now pick maybe something that is related to some specific type of the attack. And as you can see, you have all this filters by the CVE. So if you know that there's, let's say, GitLab that is running in your environment, this is a hosted version of the GitLab in your environment, and you know that there was some kind of new CVE. So you basically can search by the CVE number and get only those that are related to your attacks. As a matter of fact, we actually can show the attacks that we call known attacks, that the attacks are coming to the known CVE. So we can click here, and like it instantly shows you which of those malicious requests we're targeting, like the CVEs that we know. So like there, we have a research group that's constantly mapping all of those things. The beauty of the solution is that you don't really need to configure any of this. So you just deploy Wallarm nodes for all the apps and all the APIs. You don't need to provide any specs. It's not a positive security model kind of thing. As a matter of fact, we have this Wallarm API firewall, which is a product that we distribute free of charge. It's an open source tool. So you can look into this. It's, by the way, was picked by the Black Hat Arsenal, and it provides the positive security model. You can feed your API specs and it will apply it. So, as we see, it's very tedious work. You need to update all the specs all the time and etc. And it doesn't provide the full protection. So for the main product that we have, we don't ask you for any specs. Like we will automatically apply what we call deep API request inspection, or just like deep request inspection. We'll automatically understand either it's a traffic that is coming to the REST APIs or WebSockets or gRPC or GraphQL. We'll automatically unpack the content of it, and we'll automatically apply the attack detection techniques. So the beauty of the product is that you can run it from the very first minute. You don't need to configure, you don't need to feed any API specs. And in many cases, you don't even need to tune it because it's pretty much accurate from the day one. There might be some false positives at the very beginning, like only a few. But the thing is that we have a special way of working, which we call our, now let me just like show you, we call it safe blocking. It's a threshold-based blocking mechanism. So you basically can specify with a special trigger that I don't want to block anything if there is not more than 3 malicious payload that are coming from the specific IP address. So what does it mean in reality is that if you have like this occasional false positives during the first days of working with the system, you can still use it in the blocking mode. Just imagine like blocking mode from the very first day, where you can just like set up the threshold, which will basically safeguard from you from blocking anything by mistake, which is an amazing. So like we really like this capability of the safe blocking. But for our customers, like 88% of all the customers use the product in the blocking mode. And the reason for that is just like accurate. And it's both accurate on the false negatives and false positives. So we don't miss attacks. And there's like a lot of tooling that you find from many vendors to test the API security solution or WAPs. So we basically will show you the false negative, like one of them is Go Test WAF, which by the way was also selected by the Black Hat Arsenal. And this is the solution that we are maintaining. So like we're a little bit biased, even though it's an open source, but you will see that like it has the highest rate for both the false positives and false negatives. And let me show you a few other things here. So we'll get back to the events session a bit later. So like hopefully you see all the visibility that you're getting already. Let me show you the vulnerabilities page. So Wallarm is the product that actually can provide like detection and mitigation of different kind of API and app related attacks. But we're also capable to discover different kind of vulnerabilities and security issues and different kind of misconfigurations. So we have this tab that basically have all the data about the security issues we've discovered. And like you can scroll, I'm just scrolling it down, and like you see there's some kind of log4shell remote code execution in one of the APIs, or there is a remote code execution, or this SQL injection attack, or there's a potential BOLA in place. So for all of the attacks, you can get the information about like what is the API that is vulnerable, what is the affected parameter, like what is the description, but also there is an exploit example. This is something you can give to developers, and they can reproduce this. They can try it out and see, okay, yeah, that's actually a SQL injection in my API. I probably need to check it out. And the beauty of the product is actually that we are, in many cases, you see there is a green check mark for the attacks that we detected today. So it means that we not only detected this attack and mitigated it, but we also verified that this specific endpoint, which is GraphQL endpoint, And we can even expand and see what was the query. So let me just like expand the attack and then expand some specific API. Okay, so like in this case, it was just in the just here. So we basically verify that this particular endpoint is not vulnerable to SQL injection, and that's why we put the green check mark here. This might be different. If you go into the dashboard, you will see that there are some red dots here. So what is the red dot? It basically means an incident. And by incident, we mean that there was an attack, and it's very likely that the attack was really targeting the exposed vulnerability. So it's basically the mapping between the attacks and vulnerabilities. And this is actually a serious situation you need to react on. So like in this case, for instance, we're saying, hey, there was a remote code execution against your API endpoint v2 messages. And it's a REST API, so like it's a JSON content that was transferred. You can go and look what was the request. So you can see that there was a template parameter and there was a path reversal payload inside. And then there is one important thing here on the right side. We show the link to the vulnerability, so you can click and get right away what was the security issue related to this, like what is the nature of this path reversal. And for this vulnerability, we will show you what were the related incidents, like when we see that the attackers try to exploit it, which is super helpful for your incident response procedures, but also like for pretty much anything related to the product security. So the next question, like from CISO or any other product security manager, so like what are the controls I'm getting, right? Like I understand the risks, and I understand like even the risk score I can put in place using the data from the API discovery. I can even imply and use the data about like which of the API has been affected, like where we see most of the attacks. So what are the controls I can put in place? So, and here I can like, first of all, you can different types of the way how the system can work. And like, obviously we can just like can work in the detection mode without blocking anything. We can block pretty much everything when we think that it's malicious, or you can use safe blocking mode. So in this case, you can set basically a threshold. If there's like somebody using this, somebody with this IP address, for instance, is running more than 5 attacks, and we know that those malicious requests are malicious, we will block them. So on top of it, and this is a very basic high-level approach, right? So like on top of it, you can use what we call triggers. So it's basically a very advanced way of how you can set up the rules that was use the data that Wallarm see from the traffic inspection and apply different kind of scenarios. So one of the triggers I already showed to you. So like when we see that there's like more than 3 malicious payloads from for this specific application coming from one IP address, we want to gray list this IP address. But basically you can specify and say, hey, we believe that this particular endpoint might be potentially vulnerable to the BOLA attack. So like basically you can set up the trigger to protect this API endpoint against BOLA. Or another thing, there might be somebody who is running the validation of the token, and like we see that it's likely that it's a brute force attack. So we can basically set up the threshold by saying, hey, if there's something coming against this API endpoint and there's like certain number of requests, I want just like to put this IP address into the denial list. Or we can just say, hey, I just don't want to block anything, but I want to know when the attack is happening. So we can create a new filter, set up some scenarios like number of attacks or number of hits, let's say number of attacks. You can specify some specific application. You can specify the error code which you think would be a trigger for you. Let's say it's working in the detection mode only, and you want to know when there is an attack, so your app starts with response with the error code 500s, and you can send the event like to the Slack, for instance, or to the Microsoft Teams, or maybe to the DevOps tools like Opsgenie, PagerDuty, something that can basically help you to set up the workflow within your org. So like all the flexibility of the events and all the integrations that we provide out of the box. And it's like, it's a very powerful way to set up the workflows. And I promised you to talk about the integration. So like, you have obviously different kind of messengers like Slack and Microsoft Teams. You have different kind of DevOps tools like PagerDuty. You have SIEMs like Splunk, Sumo Logic. You have SOARs like Insight Connect and the Demistio. You have integration with the observability products like Datadog. But what's more important is that we have webhooks. So like pretty much it's possible to connect Wallarm and its event to any event that has the webhook support, or you can send all the data into the Fluentd or Logstash. So in this case, like you can use, for those who haven't worked with them before, those are amazing solutions that can actually digest the data, and they have out-of-the-box integration with pretty much everything that is supported by community. So like you can send all the events in the Fluentd, and then pick one of the hundreds of different connectors and like send the events from Wallarm to pretty much anywhere. And as I've also mentioned, like we have all the data is available of the API. So it's like very few basic scripts can connect you with pretty much everything. So like, it's all about like setting up the DevSecOps pipelines or to have the workflow. And what do we see among the most impressive companies that they have this workflows where people from the product security, from the engineering, and from the DevOps team working together using the very same tools like PagerDuty and Jira.
Okay. Actually, Stefan, I'm going to give you a second to take a breath.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm interrupting because we got two different questions on the LinkedIn Live side. Okay. Both of them integration related, so I figured this was a good spot to interject. The first one is from Fritz. He was asking, could we provide clarification how Wallarm integrates and protects on the DevOps and DevSec side of the security lifecycle? So you were just getting into it a little, but I figured I'd give you a chance to expand upon that. And then Keon's got a question. I'll get to that one next.
Yeah, there's multiple ways here. So like, first of all, the important thing is that by the nature of the product, since the attack detection doesn't rely on the regular expressions, we use what we call grammar-based attack detection. It's pretty accurate without any training or configuration. So even if you have like CI/CD pipelines, you have like releases every day, there's no way to reconfigure anything. There's no way to upload the specs and etc. to the your existing pipelines and they do anything. So like you can just make sure that in production you can protect all those assets without any additional hurdles. We all hate hurdles, right? So like you don't want to reconfigure everything. So another thing is just like you can get and automatically download all the specs. So like sitting in your CI/CD pipeline, you can basically download all the specs for a specific API that you see in the traffic or for all of the APIs. And we have like instructions of how you can compare it sitting in CI/CD pipeline with the API specs provided by developers. So they can just like automatically provide you insights about like what are the APIs, are shadow APIs or unmanaged APIs and et cetera, and et cetera. And another thing that we're not touching this in this webinar because this is something coming, but there's the API security testing module, which is in a closed beta right now, that is basically embrace the shift left process, and you can include it into the CI/CD pipeline to test your APIs before they released to the production. So there is those probably are the few things.
And then our next question, Keon, again, this was another integration one, is let's talk about, does this product integrate with CDNs that already have a current WAF protection? You know, how would we play in that environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So like it's a very common thing that we have customers that already have CDNs, and like as part of the CDN, like a lot of customers actually have some kind of web or WAF offering. It's not enough to protect APIs as we see, like which is a great opportunity for us. So like it's absolutely okay. You can have a CDN and you can deploy Wallarm, what do we call nodes? Let me show you the slides. Like all the traffic is inspected by Wallarm nodes. They are sitting either in line or out of band. So like you can have CDNs in place, like let's say like CDN in place, but you can still deploy these Wallarm nodes in your infrastructure. So like that's a very common thing. So where you will have like traffic flow goes to the CDN first, then go to the origin, and like in the origin, like let's say it's Amazon environment, you can deploy Wallarm nodes. And as I mentioned, you can use a variety of deployment options. Where we put a lot of efforts to make it friendly with the DevOps and infrastructure as a code tool like Terraform. And you can either deploy it as a ingress controller or a sidecar, or if you use something like Envoy or Nginx, it can be just a module, or Conch API gateway can just be a module into your existing infrastructure. Or it can be a reverse proxy. You just like install a reverse proxy in your environment, and we do this deep request inspection and attack detection. So talk to us, we'll show you, and we have like all the docs available. So, but the bottom line is that it's very usual that the customers have a like variety of things. Like some of the apps have a CDN, some of them they don't. And it's always a combination. And by the way, we also have a cloud product which provides CDN as a part of it. So in this case, you just like route the traffic to our environment, and you don't need to deploy anything.
Yep. Well, seems to have triggered. So I got another question, and actually used that word. For our triggers, are they configured automatically or manually?
So the concept of the triggers is to be configured manually, because it's basically like, while a lot of things Wallarm can do automatically, we just see that we need to give security practitioners opportunity to set up their own rules of the play. So we give all those insights that you can use as an input, but security practitioners can use this triggers to configure exactly what behavior they are expecting from the Wallarm in different situations. So triggers specifically are configured manually, but a lot of the attack detection that we provide, a lot of vulnerability detection, like obviously a lot of things are not automatically there, but triggers specifically is by design something that you configure manually so that you can set up different kind of expected behavior for different situations that are happening.
Cool. All right, that's it for questions as of right now. So sorry to have interrupted.
I don't know. It's okay. It's great. I forgot to make pauses so that I can take questions. But
and we actually triggered another one. So unless you got something, you want to go to the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So is there a way to graph out the attacks and map it to a MITRE technique? So the MITRE attack.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. Like, we literally discussed it yesterday. So we have a way to download all the data with the API and make it on top of the data that we already have. So, but it is not available currently in the Wallarm consoles. Like, we're basically working on how to make it like as close to as possible to what you need by using this framework. But if you have a specific data, just like reach out to us. Like, we have a few things, we call them MITRE reports. So they basically pull all the data from what we already have, like all the events and different type of events and etc., as well as the data about like the exposed assets, and map it to different kind of frameworks, including MITRE. So happy to discuss it, and maybe actually you can help us like with building this feature.
There we go. All right, people, keep them coming. I'll let you get back to where you were going next, Stefan.
Oh, yeah. I was actually about to wrap up. So like, if there's anything specifically that triggered your attention, like, I'm happy to talk on. But one of the things that we discussed is like the controls. And here I was talking about different modes of operation, the triggers they can configure manually, like as I just like figured it out. We also have rules. So like, that is more specific things, like when you need to apply different kind of virtual patching or etc. So the beauty of the rules is that it's not regular expression by any means. Let me just show you. So let's go to the API discovery, and let's just know that there was some kind of CVE in the product that you're using, and the vulnerable API method called let's say it's kind of admin settings, and like you can literally quickly find it. So what it can do on top of it, like the first thing you can look, have anyone actually attacked this endpoint? So like look and search it right away, and you can see, oh my gosh, it's actually somebody attacked it. So we can expand and you can see, oh, okay, so this a very unusual attack, by the way. It's like there was some kind of SQL injection payload or just injection payload, but it was encoded into the JWT token. So a lot of you probably know that JWT is basically the way of encoding some kind of data. And the attackers can sometimes include the payload right into the data of the JWT token. So you can see right away if there were any attacks to the specific endpoints. But what's more importantly, getting back to the rules, you can create the rule. Like, let's say I want to create the virtual patch because I know I have the data about this vulnerability. So what I can do is like I can pick one of the rules that I can create. This is kind of advanced capabilities. In most cases, you don't need to create any rules manually, but if you need to create virtual patch, obviously sometimes you need to do something manually. So like you pick, okay, I want to create the virtual patch for this specific endpoint. And here you go, like you can set up the where you want to apply it, like where you want to look for different kind of things. You can create some comments for your coworkers, like virtual patch for recent CV, like something. So it's basically a very powerful way, and you can create a lot of rules based on the basically the content of the body of the API call. So like you can specifically trigger this rule something within the JSON, or even like some kind of parameters encoded in base64 that is part of JSON. It's like, long story short, there's like very granular rules that you can create, and there are a lot of ways of doing so. But anyway, like just to reiterate, discover, find all the assets you have, and give your insights for your risk modeling, like what is possessing most of the risk. Protect, detection, and mitigation in real time with almost zero latency. We have a lot of customers actually on the e-commerce side. Those guys are paranoid about any latency. So like we work with the largest e-commerce in the world and retailers that all of you know, and they do a lot of performance testing. So like we are very fast and like it's almost zero latency. Protection in real time for all protocols against all the threats, and like the proper response, like how to respond to different kind of attacks, how to give you visibility, how to give you insights, how to set up the workflows within the different teams, how to integrate it with your existing solutions. So this is basically the product in a nutshell. And if we don't have any other questions, I'll just like highlight the next webinar that we will be having in late September, and let's wrap up today. Are there any new questions?
We don't have any other questions, but from personal perspective, you kind of glossed over it a little. You brought it up at the beginning, but it's one of the hot topics. There's more around API abuse. So do you have kind of some talking points to that before we wrap up?
Yeah. API abuse is a big thing. So like it's very easy to abuse API, right? And for like, let's talk about the protection here. So when we talk about the APIs, like it's much more complicated task, like to protect APIs, because they are supposed to be consumed by other machines or by other software. You kind of use these kind of JavaScript injected bot mitigation techniques and etc. So what we rely on right now, and some of the features that we already released, but a lot of them are coming literally in September, related to the API abuse and like automated discovery of anomalies, of the deviations from the normal behavior. So like in this case, we rely more not only on the different kind of thresholds, or we don't rely on different kind of captures because we can't apply them in the APIs. It's more about like how to see what is going on from this specific API endpoint, like what's typical way of using that, what are the sequence between using like from one API to another API to another API, and they basically find those sessions and those attackers that are trying to use it and not use them in the right way. So like there's a few things that are coming, but even right now, like you can rely a lot to prevent the API abuse from automated actions by bots or scrappers, or different kind of credential stuffing or with account takeover. So like it's all built right into the platform right now.
Okay. Just giving it one more sec. I don't see any questions. You want to touch upon the next webinar and then I'll close it out?
Yeah. So like, let me just highlight again about the deployment.
Sure.
Since we had a question on that. So the way how the system operates is we inspect all the data by the Wallarm nodes. So these Wallarm nodes typically deploy in the customer infrastructure, and the architecture is built for the privacy. So all the traffic is analyzed locally in your environment. So we don't ask to mirror all the requests from your apps and APIs and etc. So like all the traffic analysis conducted locally. We make a decision locally about like if it's an attack or not. We'll apply all the parsers and apply attack detections here on the Wallarm nodes. So this is the beauty: privacy first, super fast, near zero latency. So, and the only thing that I actually share with the cloud is the data about the attacks, so they can go to the UI and you can work with this information about different kind of attacks, and we obviously aggregate and do a lot of stuff so to make it easier for you. But the traffic analysis is conducted locally. So
actually, and with this just triggered a question is, I'm guessing he's looking for kind of a quantified answer, which I'm not sure we can give, but how much latency, I guess we'll give a general, does the Wallarm node add, and what are some best practices? And in particular, he says for EC2.
It's, let me give an example. We're working right now. We started the POV with one of the largest e-commerce in Asia. And they are saying like, hey, there's no way we can deploy anything inline that will add more than 5 milliseconds of latency, and we absolutely meet this requirement. So it's like a few milliseconds in most cases. So yeah.
Okay, Vasily, I hope it answers your question.
Yeah, and these Wallarm nodes, by the way, they're super fast. So like every single node, like even on the very, like it can handle like thousands and like a dozen thousands of requests per second, which is great. We also support the out of band. So for those of you who don't want to install anything in line, for whatever reason is, and that's absolutely okay. So we can tap into your, let's say it's AWS, we can use VPC mirroring to get the copy of the traffic and basically provide the capabilities similar to what we can do by sitting in line. So that's also the option. Great. And the third one is just basically the cloud deployment, when just route the traffic to the cloud. We do this with a partnership with Lumen. It's a new name with our CentralLink. So in this case, you don't need to deploy anything. Like everything routed with to the cloud with a simple CDN change. Yep. Awesome. With that, let me just tell that like we will have an awesome webinar September 22. It's about it's basically the checklist, and we'll already talk about the checklist for practitioners, what you can do like to build your API security program, being a member of product security team. So like now we will expand it and we'll talk about like, if you're a security leader, like how to build the API security. So like very practical thing with something like with a very practical key takeaways. Something they can use right away, and it will be helpful both for the security leaders, but and for the security practitioners. So like we'll talk on that September 22, and we'll bring a few awesome speakers that are actually working as a security leaders. So like stay tuned.
Yep, looking forward to it. All right. So if there are no other questions, which I don't see, and I'm going to give it. There's a little bit of latency between our Zoom and LinkedIn Live, so I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. Otherwise, we will be available to answer any questions offline. In particular, I got this question a couple times. For all of the people here on the Zoom webinar, we will be sending out the recording as soon as we close this out. Zoom takes a little bit to generate the recording, but you will be receiving an email with the slide deck as well as the recording. For those people on LinkedIn Live, the link never really works. I'll paste it again in the comments. Otherwise, please feel free to message me directly on LinkedIn, and I'll make sure to get you those as well. And for those that are interested, please feel free to go to wallarm.com. We have, like Stefan said earlier, a free trial and a freemium tier. So you can, if you liked what you saw, please try it out. So Stefan, thanks for your time. Hope everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah,
And,
thanks for helping me, Rick, and thanks everyone who joined.
Yep.
Thanks for your support.
And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.